Well, hello and welcome to my spoiler optional review of Hyperlight Drifter. This also includes my response to the Rock Paper Shotgun article. So this video is spoiler optional because it's done in 4 stages. If you want to skip to any, click the annotation on screen or check the description for the timestamps. You can also skip to the end to hear the long and short by clicking the annotation on screen or timestamp again. I won't spoil anything when describing each section, so don't worry. The game also releases on multiple platforms which can be detailed on their website. Both for PC and Linux, the 2 platforms I've tested it on, I have had no game-breaking issues. Which, very quick while on the topic of Linux, I do game on that platform, so subscribe to see more videos that involve Linux gaming. There's going to be a viability or setup video for SteamOS and Ubuntu sometime. They are on the way. So moving on to number 1. I'll do this section now. If you've been following this game since the Kickstarter and want to go in completely blind, but want to know if it's a disappointment or not, I'm pleased to tell you that this game has exceeded my expectations and more. It's not all sunshine and roses, however, as the game does suffer from a couple of technical problems, but they're nothing major. The first one is that you can easily fall through some of the level geometry due to certain mechanics. And I don't just mean when you fuck up, there have been instances where I've walked into a certain area and the geometry has just let me drop through when it shouldn't. The second one is some minor issues with systems that have multiple controllers, such as mine. I have a steering wheel, a flight stick, and my Steam controller plugged in, as well as a Logitech G13 board which includes a joystick on it as well. So that's 4 total. The main bug to do with this being that the engine doesn't really know which one to prioritize, so if you're using a wireless controller like me, I use a Steam controller, and it turns off midway through your session, the game has not picked it back up again for me and known that this is a controller that it should use, so it's switched to the steering wheel, weirdly enough, and then it won't go back to the Steam controller. It means that you have to restart the game to get these working again. However, seeing as the game autosaves quite often, it's not really a problem, to be honest with you, as you lose maybe 30 seconds of progress. At the rate they patch the game, should be fixed pretty soon. Something that isn't a tech issue, but is a minor downside for me, is all audio is in stereo and doesn't really scale to 7.1. I have a surround sound system and then a 7.1 headset, and you can see this now on my voice meter audio monitor on screen. Even so, stereo audio does work with surround sound systems and 7.1 headsets, so this doesn't really matter. It's kind of just a minor gripe for me. I would have liked to have heard the music in full surround sound. However, besides these minor issues, I went in blind as well, besides watching footage from the teaser level and trailers, and can safely say it's worth a buy if you're in the same position. But be prepared for a challenging experience that lives up to the name. So go on, go get it. This is the last chance to stop watching before I move on. I would honestly recommend stopping here if you don't want anything at all spoiling for you. So section number 2 will be for people who need a little more. This one covers basic gameplay mechanics, visual fidelity, and audio quality. It doesn't touch upon the story or reveal any of the enemy types besides the most common, and past this point in the review, it's all gameplay footage. Number 3 is similar to number 2, but it's a lot more in depth. We touch upon the story, how progression works, some of the nice touches I liked, and what secrets you can expect to find. And number 4 talks heavily about that Rock Paper Shotgun article and the difficulty of certain parts, as well as providing some tips in general. So seeing as we already did number 1, here's number 2, last chance to stop watching. So in its most basic form, the game works as a 2D isometric slashy brawler thing. You can slash with your sword, dash, and fire a gun which can only be aimed while standing still. For these reasons, the combat feels very similar to Dark Souls in its execution. While Salt and Sanctuary is a 2D homage to that game, Hyperlight Drifter takes inspiration from it and applies its own spin, which is great. It creates this wonderful ballet when you get used to the systems involved, even when not in combat and just traversing the movement puzzles. The pixel art is smooth and has some beautiful and epic moments in the scenery, which I won't be showing in this section, and the audio reminds me a lot of Fez and Proteus, with a bit of Blade Runner mixed in. So now we get more in depth with number 3. I'll give you a few seconds to click off. Great, you're still here. So the basic gameplay is smooth, hard, but smooth. It's manageable, and if you learn the attack patterns of enemies, it can get surprisingly easy and satisfying. There's absolutely no hand-holding here though. To go further into what this does remind me of, it's honestly like Fez and Dark Souls had a baby and then it was raised by Journey and Dishonored. The dash mechanic doesn't work 100% like the blink mechanic in Dishonored. It's more akin to the roll in Dark Souls, but it's used for both combat and puzzle solving like in Dishonored, where you can reach certain places that are otherwise hidden and contain secrets or upgrades. With shooting, this is very Dark Souls, where you can quickly fire a shot off by tapping the fire button, but to actually aim your projectiles you're required to stand perfectly still. This is both used in puzzle solving and combat. Barely any of these mechanics are wasted on a single aspect of the game, and can all be used to solve different brain teasers that the game throws at you, including hidden switches, hidden platforms, upgrades placed in dangerous places, and bullet hell sections. However, to access most of these mechanics you have to use the progression system, which works by collecting these yellow SD card things. When you have 4, you get a little yellow square, which is used as currency to buy more abilities or improve your existing ones. These upgrades include, but are not limited to, more energy in your gun, chain dash, being able to hit bullets to deflect them, grenades, and a surprising amount more. Each ability making your foray into the unknown that much easier by allowing you to access previously unreachable areas, be it an agility or combat issue. It also adds an extra level of depth each time you get a new ability to the combat. For example, when getting the chain dash, which allows you to instantly dash multiple times, it adds this new sort of dynamic to the combat. Instead of dashing once out of the way and then coming back in and slashing, you can dash around the arena. So if you have one enemy on one side, attack, dash 3 times around to the other side, attack the other one. And it creates this wonderful ballet of jumping around the arena and striking enemies as they are reacting to you instantly appearing in front of them. It also means that with certain puzzles you can quickly traverse the area without taking any damage. Which this progression system I think is a bit of genius, because what it means is that because you have to traverse the levels and get into newer and newer areas to even pick up these little SD card things and get the points you need to sink into upgrades, it requires you to learn all of your previous abilities before you gain new ones. So what it basically teaches you to do is master the previous mechanics before you get any further, before you learn any new mechanics. So what it means is that you never go in feeling overwhelmed. You always master what you should be doing before you learn something new. The whole game just has this sort of feeling of that you should master it before moving on, in that it wants you to get better. And seeing as there is the theme of basically having an illness in here, that does seem to be a common theme within the game, wanting to get better. Like, that's what I can tell from the story, and that you're trying to get rid of this illness that you appear to have. So it's all about self-improvement in a kind of a weird way. But speaking of your foray into the unknown, that's the main theme of the game. The general premise is that you wake up at a campfire after a fever dream that hints at an apocalyptic event. You start exploring. It's quite easy to see the Dark Souls and Journey inspirations from the get-go and as you progress, since the character does look similar to Journey. It's got the cape, the helmet, and you can only see the eyes. But at the same time, Dark Souls because of the sword and legs and armour. The story elements in this game are mainly told to you through the environment in these little drawing or comic thingies that you get when talking to certain characters. This is a very definition of show, don't tell, as there are no words used in the entire game besides on the menu screens or basic tutorials. Even when buying upgrades or doing anything in the game, most mechanics are conveyed through the use of symbols. From a UI design standpoint, everything is incredibly elegant, and as somebody who used to create databases and user interface systems for a living, this pleases me to no end. The symbol design is on another level and does what Fez attempted to do but 100 times better. Going back to those epic and beautiful scenery moments, I'm going to show you a couple so you get the idea. I mean, this effect of layering 2D art in the distance gives everything a huge amount of scale and intrigue. Now, before I talk about my thoughts on the story, I'd like to point out a few nice touches that really make this game interesting, or just plain streamlined, or are just really satisfying. This little idle animation in the sword shop of this little kid thing, like throwing the sword and then it hitting him on the head, is just plain adorable. And the images of every vendor that give you a closer look to each is pretty cool and adds a new layer of characterization to everything, and lets you get an up-close look at all the different races included in the game. And the way that if you have the max amount of health packs picked up and you pick up another one, it instantly heals you. This is great because it doesn't stop you from picking up another health pack and force you to use one and then pick that one up again. It removes this unnecessary step and goes straight to what you would have done anyway, which is to use that health pack straight away. And I found out you can find the tutorial area by exploring. I accidentally stumbled onto this area and went further than I was able to in the tutorial to discover something that I won't spoil for you. If you've made it this far, I assume you already know about the final thing I've not spoiled, or just don't care. Basically, the RPS article complains about the bosses being too hard. Specifically a bird priest that, full disclosure, I've not reached it yet. Which, if any of the other bosses I've completed so far are anything to go by, I have to say this. Just get good. It's not that the game doesn't want you to play anymore, as you comment at the bottom of your article, you self-entitled shit. It's that it wants you to get better and master the mechanics. Honestly, that last paragraph is such a victim thing. It's a game. If you're not good enough to complete it, it doesn't mean it doesn't want you to play it anymore. It wants you to get better and master the mechanics. This is kind of like the thing where you start a project and because you're finding it too hard, oh, obviously this project doesn't want me to finish it. No, you need to get better to finish it. It's the whole point of going to school for things. Christ above, it's not the world's fault because you can't do something. I mean, honestly, it seems like he's giving up too easily and hasn't fully learnt the attack patterns of each boss. The first one I did, which was that frog thing, took me 3 attempts. And I only needed to heal once on my final attempt. Then again, I'd already unlocked Chain Dash and the grenade power-up at this point, so this may have helped to make it much easier because I can just dance around his attacks. Plus, I've played a lot of Dark Souls, and as the article says, games like this are probably made for people like me who choose the hard option when playing video games. And I actually spent time mastering the Chain Dash maneuver when I bought it, trying to unlock the doors that give you some secrets, next to the dash upgrade vendor. Which probably helps. Like, this is a whole thing, master the mechanics. The point is that everything in the game is doable. Instead of bashing your head against a brick wall, try going away and mastering the dash mechanic or getting more upgrade currency, then coming back later. It's a bit akin to leveling up more in Dark Souls and then returning to that really hard boss. You know, or just put the game down, have a little bit of a think about it. More than anything, this follows the trend of video game journalists trying to finish a game as quickly as possible to get the review out as quickly as possible. Then getting frustrated because, whoop-de-doo, it takes effort. It's a bit sad that we are at this stage with content delivery, to be honest, and it's why I won't finish a game before doing my review or impressions video. I'll get as far as I deem necessary, as someone who has a good feel for the game can tell you if it's good, whereas all someone who has finished the game can add is if the end game is great, which is 10% of the experience, and realistically, I don't think this should be told to anyone before they go into a game. It's like reading the end of a book before you've even started. Which, if your next argument is that games should cater to everyone, then I honestly think you should think about what you're asking for, which is essentially that games are made so easy they are no longer games, as catering to everyone would require a skip combat button for paraplegics. It's silly. Just put more effort in and spend time mastering the mechanics if it's hard. We don't make 100-meter sprints available to everyone because disabled people who can't use their legs blatantly can't do it. And FYI, there's a reason why we have the Paralympics. It's for that specific situation, in the same way that we have easier games. It's this self-entitled attitude of, but what about me? It's an indie project, and therefore the point is to create something the creator wants to make, not to have mass appeal. The long and short of this game is that it's good, well made, and challenging, and it's not impossible like this article's claiming it to be. 10 out of 10, IGN. Alright guys, if you're new here, remember to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching if you're not new here. I appreciate all of the support and everybody that's subscribed to me over the past couple of months. It's been amazing. If you want to watch another gaming video, I did one on The Division. That is spoiler free, I don't even discuss the story at all, so feel free to have a little look at that. But yeah, see you later guys, and get Hyper Light Drifter, it's pretty good, it's worth playing.